This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Stick around to the end of the video for a special offer they're making available through my channel. Gamers, there is so much news this week that I don't even have time for a pithy intro block, so here's the deal. You like and subscribe, and I'll get straight to the news. Deal? Deal. Alright, let's do this. This week, Todd, the only game developer with his own theme song, sat down with the highly respected gaming publication UK's The Telegraph to talk about Bethesda, Starfield, and if The Telegraph was lucky, Elder Scrolls 6. Luck was a lady that night as Todd spilled more than a few beans. Todd confirmed that Elder Scrolls 6 would run on Creation Engine 2, an update to the previous Creation Engine that powered Bethesda titles like Fallout 4, Skyrim, and Fallout 76. And since none of those games had any bugs, it's safe to assume that Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 won't either. Speaking specifically about the next Elder Scrolls release date, Todd had this to say, quote, "It's good to think of the Elder Scrolls 6 as still being in design phase," end quote. In case you're trying to remember, yes, Elder Scrolls 6 was revealed back in 2018, and now, 3 years later, Bethesda are still in the design phase? Everyone guessed back then that the reveal logo was little more than a cynical effort to calm Bethesda fans who worried that Fallout 76 would usher in a new era of multiplayer-focused live service garbage from Bethesda. Turns out those fans were more than spot on, but the logo reveal did the trick, as it was the most viewed trailer for all of E3 2018. Well played, Todd. Anyway, don't expect Elder Scrolls 6 anytime before 2024 is my guess? 2025 maybe? Hopefully we're all still alive by that point. You might recall that Obsidian, Bethesda's more talented understudy, has been working on an Elder Scrolls-like game of their own, and this week Phil Spencer had a little to say on the subject. Speaking to IGN, Phil said that Avowed was still a while from releasing, and offered this insight into the Elder Scrolls comparison. Quote, "I think the games are very different, so maybe I struggle a little bit to say that's our version of this." By the way, when he says "our," he seems to have forgotten that he also owns Bethesda at this point, so I don't know if that's quite the right word to use. Uncle Phil would go on to compare Avowed's place in Microsoft's portfolio to Fable, which he says has always been a little more lighthearted and a little more British. Okay, funny, British, fantasy-inspired RPG, like a open-world Monty Python, I guess? Wait, why isn't that already a thing? I would play the shit out of an open-world Monty Python RPG. While we're on the topic of Microsoft, you might have heard that they landed themselves a pretty big fish this week. Jeff Grubb of VentureBeat has reported that Microsoft and Kojima Productions have signed a letter of intent aimed at advancing the dream of bringing at least one of Kojima's next projects to Xbox. If true, the signed agreement will be a precursor to a full publishing deal, meaning that, yeah, you can likely expect an Xbox Kojima exclusive in our lifetime. As for what the project is, it apparently doesn't even exist yet. This agreement is about setting up Kojima with whatever he might need to make his next thing, but rumors abound that it will be at least in part dependent on cloud technology, which is right up Microsoft's alley because of their Azure data centers. That news didn't go over so well with everyone, with one person going so far as to start a change.org petition to get Kojima to change his mind and keep multi-platform. Quote, "Kojima is betraying his loyal fans. He is blinded by greed. We must help him come back to the winning side. Please share this petition, everyone." With 588 signatures, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before Kojima realizes the error of his ways and cancels the project. And when he does, we'll all have Vryn to thank. Good job, buddy. Very normal. That wasn't the only Xbox news this week. If you're lucky enough to be in a country with decent internet, aka not Australia, then you might be pleased to learn that xCloud got some very meaty updates, and they're a low-key game changer. First of all, in select territories, xCloud is now available through any Windows 11 PC, iOS phones, and tablets. You'll play your games through a browser window, and it gives you instant access to the constantly expanding library of xCloud games. I think there's at least 100 or so at this point. Even better, the xCloud backend was recently upgraded to run on Xbox Series X hardware, where before it was running on last generation's One S. That's a big jump in power. So just to be clear about this, when Halo Infinite launches at the end of the year, you'll be able to pay $15 for a month of Game Pass Ultimate, and if your internet is good enough, you'll be able to play through Halo on your iPhone or your tablet or whatever, serving up visuals running on Xbox Series X hardware. That's a very, very good deal, and it really starts to change the way we think about the term exclusive when games are as accessible as this. It wasn't all good news for Xbox this week though. Bloomberg had an excellent piece, which sadly is behind a paywall. It's about an internal product tester who managed to scam $10 million worth of Xbox gift cards out of Microsoft during his employment. This guy found a loophole allowing him to order cards for free. He would then on-sell them to various websites sites and resellers. This guy was living the dream with cars and waterfront houses and luxury travel around the world. When he was finally arrested, police found a list titled "How I Will Manage My Next 10 Million." The absolute balls on this guy. Anyway, he's in jail now. RIP. Control was one of the best games of 2018, to the point where a sequel for it was inevitable. We'd already heard that a sequel was in the works, but this week we learned of a new multiplayer spin-off set in the Control universe. Remedy outlined the new game, which comes as part of a publishing agreement with 505 Games. They made clear that it won't be a Control multiplayer game where you control Jesse or whatever. This is an entirely new premise, but set in the same world. They even offered up a bit of concept art to help set the scene. They kind of look like siege operators, don't you think? Much of the statement was an attempt to quell concerns that Remedy would lose their focus on single-player experiences. But I'm not really worried about that. I'm a little bit worried about overreach though, since at this point Remedy are working on a Control sequel, this new Control-inspired spin-off, a separate multiplayer game based on new IP called Project Vanguard, the campaign for the upcoming Western release of the Korean shooter Crossfire, and potentially an Alan Wake 1 and 2 remake. That's a lot of projects. I hope that Remedy can juggle all those balls at once. We heard from id Software this week. Executive producer Marty Stratton put out a statement telling everyone that Doom Eternal's promised invasion mode would be cancelled, with them directing their efforts towards a new horde mode which will ship at some point, as well as updates to the existing battle mode. I'm kind of bummed about this, since the idea of being able to invade people during campaign missions would have been awesome, and I gladly would have done another playthrough of the game with this sort of Damocles hanging over my head the entire time. Another horde mode? Sure, I guess that works too. It's a lot less interesting than Invasions, but at least we can trust id to make a good horde mode since the gameplay structure is very much their bag. We got a little bit of news about what to expect from EA Play at the end of the month, or more specifically, what not to expect. BioWare tweeted out this week, quote, "We're hard at work creating the next Dragon Age and Mass Effect games and have some exciting stuff coming to SWTOR this year. While we won't be showing anything at EA Play Live, be sure to check out our SWTOR live stream at 12 PM PT today for info on what's to come," end quote. This is a real bummer. It's been a while since Dragon Age was first revealed, and it feels about time for some more info on that one. Then again, we don't want to rush BioWare since we all know what happens when we do that. The Star Wars The Old Republic news, though, was pretty good. 10 years since the release of the title, it's still kicking on, and this week BioWare announced the Legacy of the Sith expansion, including new story, new in-game missions, character upgrades, and more. It's releasing at the end of the year. If you haven't played SWTOR, by the way, it's free, and I really recommend checking out its campaigns. The stories are truly excellent, and it's worth experiencing if you haven't, especially if you're a Star Wars fan. Speaking of BioWare, we learned this week that former BioWare general manager Casey Hudson was setting up his own studio. He left BioWare a while back and then came back for a short stint, but now it looks like he's gone for good, since setting up your own studio is certainly planting a flag. Quote, "Today we're announcing a new independent video game company built to unleash the creative freedom of developers, bringing innovation and artistry to players through an all-new IP." What does this mean for BioWare? Well, it probably means at least a little bit of talent drain, since Casey is much loved by BioWare staff, and I'm sure he'd have little problem recruiting from BioWare's ranks, especially when he can offer them an environment free of EA's bullshit. What bullshit is that, you ask? Well, I know you're not really asking that because you guys know EA's bullshit, but it's a neat segue to talk about the next story, so just go with it. This week, a new advertising platform was announced that aimed to bring television-style ads into video games. Axios reported that the new platform Player One had struck a deal with Hi-Rez and already has a pilot running in Smite. Axios also reported that EA had signed onto this platform, a claim that EA would later go on to rebuff. Quote, "Following incorrect reports suggesting that we are looking to introduce TV-style commercials into our games, we want to clarify that in-game advertising for console games is not something we're currently looking at or have signed any agreements to implement," an EA spokesperson said. "Creating the best possible player experience remains our priority focus." Sorry, I couldn't even get through that without laughing. We all know that's complete bullshit, but just as a reminder, it was only last year that EA tried to implement this exact system in UFC 4. EA would later go on to apologize and remove the ads, but do you really think that they aren't going to try and do this again in the future? Really? If you believe that, then I've got a surprise mechanic to sell you. Alright, big story time, buckle up, and remember, don't shoot the messenger. This week, Konami and Bloober Team, maker of Observers, Layers of Fear, and the recent The Medium, signed a strategic partnership agreement with Konami. They didn't say what this was for, but everybody knows it was to make the next installment in Konami's flagship franchise, Dance Dance Revolution, but also maybe Silent Hill. Yeah, probably Silent Hill. No, seriously though, this is Silent Hill, and people are not happy about it. The news was met with a universal groan on social media, as Bloober Team's middling track record doesn't inspire the sort of confidence that Silent Hill fans had been hoping to feel, especially when the alternative was literally Hideo Kojima. I mean, those are big shoes to fill. Video Games Chronicles sailed in to save the day though, reporting that Konami had already outsourced at least one Silent Hill project to a quote, prominent developer in Japan, end quote, meaning we can likely expect more than one Silent Hill game over the next few years. Personally, I feel kind of bad for Bloober. They really had the shit kicked out of them this week on social media, and while their output to this point hasn't been stellar, I'm hoping they can rise to the occasion for this. Best of luck, Bloober Team. Alright, it's time for the Sony block. You knew it was coming, and here it is. Hold on to your butts. This week, Sony announced the acquisition of Housemarque, makers of Super Stardust, Alienation, and the recent smash hit Returnal. Housemarque has been making Sony exclusives for a few decades now, but only as a third-party studio. This deal puts a ring on it, making Housemarque a first-party Sony studio. With so many years of exclusive Sony releases, you may wonder why Sony felt the need to buy Housemarque at all. I mean, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? Turns out that Housemarque had their fair share of suitors knocking at the door. As to who those might have been, CEO Ilari Kutinen said, quote, usual suspects, i.e. major players in the field from China, Sweden, and the United States, end quote. We can assume he was talking about the likes of China's Tencent, Europe's Embracer Group, and the US's Microsoft, but we'll never know for sure. It's possible that Sony were forced to act or risk losing the studio forever. Either way, it was a good purchase because Housemarque rocks. You might have heard that the Housemarque acquisition didn't go quite to plan. The Sony Japan Twitter account tweeted out an image with the wrong logo on it, specifically that of Bluepoint Studios, the developers responsible for a string of high-quality remasters like Shadow of the Colossus and the recent Demon's Souls. Everyone guessed that this was a case of letting the cat out of the bag early, since that's a very, very specific mistake to make, and Bluepoint haven't denied the news yet. They have, however, updated their Twitter bio to reiterate that they are a fully independent and self-funded studio. Sure, for now I guess, but tomorrow? Who knows? If you can believe it, that wasn't all the Sony acquisition news for the week. A few days ago, Sony announced that they acquired Nixxes Software, a studio that focuses on, wait for it, PC ports. Their previous credits include Square Enix titles such as Deus Ex and Tomb Raider. If you go to their projects page, they had this to say about themselves, quote, over the past 15 years, we've worked on several games, varying from a full conversion aimed at near simultaneous release with the original, to just quickly helping out on a game which was in trouble. They list a photo of Marvel's Avengers below, so I guess that was the project in trouble if anyone was wondering. The news is exciting to PlayStation fans since it lines up with Sony's recent efforts to port their releases to PC, stuff like Horizon Zero Dawn and Days Gone, so it's likely we can expect more Sony PC ports in the future, which is only a good thing. One of Sony's newly minted jewels is Sucker Punch's Ghost of Tsushima, and it was revealed this week that it was getting a director's cut. This is essentially a DLC introducing a new story arc to take place in a new area called Iki Island. We don't know anything more about it at this point, but I'm pumped to return to Tsushima because I absolutely loved that game. It was amazing. The other thing coming, separate from the director's cut, is a next-gen update, which introduces 4K 60fps, 3D audio, haptic feedback, and Japanese lip syncing, since the current lip sync is only for the English voice track, which makes the Japanese dub kind of awkward to listen to. It's all these Japanese people speaking Japanese, but they're mouthing English words. It looks really goofy. All of this stuff is fantastic, love it, but guess what? This next-gen update will cost you $10 US. Now look, this has sparked a huge discussion, with a lot of people pointing out that most other games don't charge for next-gen updates, so why is Sony doing it here? Others will argue that Sony gave away the fantastic Legends multiplayer mode for free, so they've earned the right to charge here. Or a broader point, that Sucker Punch worked on these next-gen features, so charging for them is entirely fair. I'm actually sympathetic to both of these views, but here's what I think bottom line. Sure, Sony can make a few $1 million doing this, absolutely. But they've also bought themselves a few $1 million worth of bad press, with social media and YouTubers and streamers and gaming publications all talking about this $10 price tag, rather than the fact that one of the best games of 2020 is getting more content. That seems like too high a price to pay, and if I were a Sony executive, I certainly would have made a different call. Sadly, I'm not a Sony executive. If I were, I'd buy Konami, I'd buy Kojima Productions, and I'd make them kiss, so that Kojima can make Silent Hill and Metal Gear, and the Dance Dance Revolution sequel that we've all been begging for. Call me Jim Ryan. Call me. So, what got announced or delayed this week? Well, with some of the world emerging from year-long lockdowns, CD Projekt Red has decided it's time to release their Pokemon Go-inspired augmented reality game, The Witcher Monster Slayer. We still don't know too many specifics at this point, but we do know you'll be running around IRL to hunt and slay monsters. It's coming to Android and iOS on July 21st, but you can pre-register now. Another mobile release got a release date, Near Reincarnation, the gacha game that's been out in Japan for a long time. It's finally coming to the West on July 24th. Reports on this are generally fairly positive. Apparently it's not a must-play if you're a Nier fan, but it's still worth checking out, and the gacha stuff sucks, but it isn't horrendously bad like some of them can be. It's free to start, so I'll be checking it out at launch. The first 3 games in the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster arrive on July 28th, exclusive to Steam and mobile devices, because why would you put that on a console, I guess? You can buy them on their own, but you can also get all of them in a bundle at a discount. When bought that way, each game ends up being around $12.50 USD. The only delay announcement this week wouldn't have made it into the show were it not for my editor Austin, and he's all like, you have to talk about Guild Wars this week, because he's a massive Guild Wars nerd. And I'm like, fine. But for real, I've been meaning to try Guild Wars for a while, and I plan to do so when the next big expansion hits. Turns out that's not happening for a while now, since the End of Dragons expansion has been pushed back from late 2021 to early 2022. But to soften the blow, the team announced that the former game director Colin Johansson has returned to co-lead the studio, news that players in the community seem thrilled about. At least that's what Austin tells me. Austin, you better not be messing me around on this one. My comment section has a long memory and they do not mess around. Finally, we got some Cancellation news this week. Magic Legends, the ARPG deck builder hybrid set in the Magic the Gathering universe, is no more. The game was still in early access, but I guess feedback and player counts were so bad that the developer pulled the pin, announcing that refunds on purchases will be issued and servers will wind up by the end of October. The only thing I ever heard about this game was that its microtransaction prices were egregious. So nothing lost, I guess. So what came out last week? Nothing. Next. So, what's coming out this week? Well, it's another quiet week, but there are a few things to look forward to. Watch Dogs Legion gets its first story-based DLC on the 6th of July. It's called Bloodline and reintroduces Aiden Pierce from the first game and Wrench from the second game, both of which will be playable here in Legion. On the 7th, Fallout 76 is getting some new content, and if you know me, you know I love me some 76. It's called Steel Rain and introduces a Brotherhood of Steel-related questline, changes to legendary crafting, and probably some other stuff that Bethesda hope will trick people into thinking the game is worth the $22 Australian a month that they charge as part of the Fallout First subscription. Can you imagine spending $22 a month to play Fallout 76? I still remember the day that was announced. I thought I'd seen it all before, but no. Todd is full of surprises. Biggest release of the week is Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin, which hits on July 9th for both Nintendo Switch and PC. Now, I was not paying attention to this until I played the demo, and then I was like, wait a second, this is excellent. It's Monster Hunter's characters and world and monsters, but instead of being a third-person action game, it's a JRPG, not dissimilar to Pokemon, where you have to catch, train, and battle monsters, but unlike Pokemon, it doesn't suck. At least the demo didn't. You can download the Switch demo right now, and there's apparently a PC demo coming when the PC version releases, so you can try before you buy. If you are a Monster Hunter fan, be sure to check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. Put this on your radar. Okay, so this is a bit of shameless self-promotion, but it's kind of not, so bear with me. Last week, I did a roundup of the best demos I played during the recent Steam Next Fest. I played around 40 demos, and I picked out the best 20 or so to highlight as stuff you should keep an eye on. Already, a whole bunch of indie devs have reached out to me to let me know that they got a nice, big, healthy wishlist bump as a result of the video, and that was the whole goal, helping devs cut through and getting their hard work noticed. Rather than highlighting just one game here today, I'd love it if you could check out that video. Hopefully you'll see something you love, and then you can wishlist it. Everyone's a winner in that equation. I'll leave a link in the description below. Sort of free stuff time, and it's a huge week across multiple platforms. Twitch sometimes comes in clutch, and it did so this week with a haul of games you can grab if you're a Twitch Prime or Amazon Prime subscriber. They're the same thing, by the way. For the next few weeks, you can grab Tales of the Neon Sea, a beautiful pixel art adventure game, Batman: The Enemy Within, the telltale take on the classic Cape Crusader, and also The Secret of Monkey Island Special Edition. Scary to think that that game is 30 years old now. Jesus. On Epic, you can currently grab third-person puzzler The Spectrum Retreat, but on July 8th, you'll be able to grab Bridge Constructor The Walking Dead. I had no idea this even existed, but it does. It's a puzzle game where you build bridges set in the Walking Dead universe. There's also one of these, but for Valve's Portal. That's kind of cool. Finally, on the 8th, you can grab Iron Cast. Total Biscuit, when he was with us, did a curator review on Steam for this one. Here's what he had to say. It's a steampunk mech match 3 RPG with a little faster than light tossed in for good measure, lots of replayability, tactical combat, and satisfying match 3. I know it's sad to bring up Total Biscuit, but I think it's sadder to not bring him up. And that's all I'll say about that. Anyway, let's keep talking about some free stuff. PS Plus got its monthly refresh this week. The PS5 game du jour is A Plague Tale Innocence, an absolutely superb third-person adventure game that I totally recommend if you haven't yet played it. On PS4, you can grab Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and WWE 2K Battlegrounds. I feel like those games really go together well. I'm not quite sure why, I just get that vibe. Don't forget you can still grab Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate until August. The shambling corpse of Games with Gold continues to shamble on, with stink lines and flies all around it, but it's still here. I don't know why, no one knows why. It's still here, it'll outlive us all. This month you can get Shadows Awakening, Conquer Live and Reloaded, Planet Alpha, and Midway Arcade Origins. At least Conquer is good. Our feel-good story for the week sees a great injustice righted. Months back when BioWare revealed the existence of the Mass Effect remake, they revealed a shocking, unnecessary change. They were removing the butt shots from that cutscene with Miranda. Unsurprisingly, gamers were mad. I mean, why mess with perfection? And there's nothing more perfect than this camera angle. Worry not, gamers, for once again, modders have saved the day. This week, a mod was released that restored the cutscene butt shots to their former bootylicious glory, and that's great, but I don't think this mod goes far enough. I want a mod that makes every cutscene in the entirety of Mass Effect look like this. When Saren is delivering his villainous monologue, I want a nice, clear view of his keister. Get to work, modders. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the week in video games. We ran a little long this week since there was so much news to crunch through, and there was no way I was not going to talk about that butt shot story. If you found anything in this video remotely interesting, or remotely enjoyable, or remotely anything, then do your boy a solid and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ding the notification bell so you can play that first game that people love to play in the comment section. That one never gets old, sadly. Thank you all for watching, and a big thank you to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. If you've been around these parts before, you've probably heard me talk about Squarespace once or twice, maybe. No, but seriously, Squarespace has been supporting this channel for around 2 years now. They are in fact my longest running partner, and I really do thank them for that. I've always loved having them as a partner because they put out a great product that I am more than happy to recommend to you. If you haven't heard of them, Squarespace is a platform that allows you to easily create custom-built websites that look professional. So if you're starting a business, or you want to promote your art, or you want to start a blog or whatever, then Squarespace is the perfect place to do just that. You just select a template, customize it in minutes, enable whatever features take your fancy like e-commerce or calendars or a comment section or whatever you like, and then you can publish it. There are of course detailed analytics allowing you to see how your website is tracking, so you can see, what people are clicking on and how the website is doing, which is of course very important. To get started, visit squarespace.com, and when you're ready to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup for a 10% discount on your first purchase of a website or a domain name. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.